The galaxy was vast, shimmering with stars and planets that stretched beyond comprehension. For centuries, humans had been part of this cosmic tapestry, weaving themselves into the fabric of interstellar society. They weren't always welcomed. Warmly, many alien species viewed them as unpredictable, overly ambitious newcomers. But over time, humanity earned a place at the table. The Galactic Council, an assembly of representatives from various civilizations, reluctantly accepted Earth's inhabitants as members. It wasn't perfect, but it worked. Jin-Ho sat in his chair on the council floor, his expression unreadable. He was one of the few who never trusted humans fully. A pragmatic thinker, he saw their presence as disruptive. To him, they were too different, too chaotic compared to the measured ways of other species. Humans pushed boundaries, questioned rules, and often acted without considering consequences. Jin-Ho had argued against letting them join the council years ago, but his voice had been drowned out by those eager to see what humanity could contribute. On this particular day, however, something unusual happened. No one expected it, not even Jin-Ho. As the council convened for its weekly meeting, news arrived that shook everyone to their core. Earth's ships were gone. Every single one. Colonies abandoned. Research stations deserted, even unfinished. Projects left behind like forgotten toys. There were no messages, no warnings, no explanations. Humanity had simply vanished. Su Jin, another council member, leaned forward in her seat, her brow furrowed with concern. Unlike Jin-Ho, she believed in humanity's potential. She admired their creativity, their ability to adapt quickly to challenges. Her heart sank as she processed the information. "What do you mean, gone?" she asked aloud, addressing the messenger who stood trembling before the council. "How can billions of people just disappear?" The messenger shuffled nervously, clutching his datapad tightly. "We don't know, Counselor," he stammered. "All we have are reports from our outposts near human territories. Their ships, they're not responding. We've checked every frequency, every channel. Nothing." Murmur rippled through the chamber. Some counselors exchanged worried glances while others whispered urgently to their aides. Su Jin turned to Jin-Ho, hoping for some insight, but his face remained impassive. If anything, he seemed almost relieved. "They've made their choice," Jin-Ho said finally, breaking the silence. His tone was cold, clinical. "This is their problem now, not ours," Su Jin frowned. "That's not true, and you know it. Humanity has been part of this council for decades. Their work, their contributions, they're woven into everything we do. What happens when their systems fail? When their colonies fall apart because no one's there to maintain them?" Jin-Ho shrugged dismissively. "Then we'll deal with it. Other species will step up. Humanity isn't irreplaceable." His words sparked anger among several counselors. One of them, a tall, green-skinned ambassador named Yun-Ji, rose from her seat. "You can't seriously think that way," she said sharply. "Humans have played key roles in mediating disputes, developing technology, and fostering cooperation. Without them, tensions between factions will rise again. You remember how bad things were before they joined us." Jin-Ho crossed his arms, unmoved. "Perhaps. But maybe this is a chance for us to prove we don't need them. Maybe this is an opportunity to rebuild stronger, better." Yun-Ji opened her mouth to argue further, but Su Jin intervened gently. "Arguing won't solve anything right now," she said, casting a calming glance around the room. "We need answers. Why did they leave? Where did they go? And most importantly, what does this mean for the rest of us?" The question hung heavy in the air. No one had answers yet, only theories and fears. Fears of instability, fears of losing the fragile peace humanity helped maintain. Fears of being truly alone in a universe that suddenly felt much larger and emptier than before. As the meeting dragged on, Su Jin couldn't shake the feeling that something monumental had shifted. Humanity's departure wasn't just a logistical issue. It was symbolic. It raised questions about trust, reliance, and the delicate balance holding the galaxy together. And deep down, she wondered if Jin-Ho might be wrong, if humanity was irreplaceable after all. For now, though, the council adjourned without resolution. Each member returned to their quarters, burdened by uncertainty. Su Jin stayed behind, staring out the massive window overlooking the Council's capital planet. Stars twinkled in the distance, indifferent to the turmoil below. Somewhere out there, humanity drifted silently through the void, leaving behind a legacy and a mystery that would haunt the galaxy for years to come. The days following humanity's disappearance were tense and unsettling. The Council's capital planet buzzed with activity as representatives scrambled to assess the situation. Messages flew back and forth between outposts, colonies, and allied species, but no one could provide clarity. Humanity's absence loomed like a shadow over every decision, every conversation. It was as though the galaxy had lost its heartbeat. Yunji stood on the balcony of her private quarters, gazing at the sprawling city below. Lights twinkled in the distance, casting a soft glow against the night sky. Normally, this view brought her peace, but tonight it only deepened her unease. She thought about the countless times humans had stepped in to mediate disputes, how their presence seemed to calm even the most volatile situations. Now, without them, old wounds began reopening. Trade. Routes once secured by human diplomacy started crumbling. Ships carrying vital resources faced delays or outright blockades. Skirmishes erupted near contested territories, each side accusing the other of provocation. Yunji tried to intervene, using her role as an ambassador for a neutral species to broker peace. But it was exhausting. Every negotiation felt like trying to hold back a flood with bare hands. Hostility simmered just beneath the surface, ready to boil over at any moment. Back in the council chambers, Jin Ho watched these developments with growing frustration. He hated admitting it, even to himself. But he was starting to feel uneasy, too. Several advanced technologies developed jointly with humans. Technologies the council relied heavily upon began malfunctioning. Quantum communication arrays flickered unpredictably. Terraforming devices failed to regulate planetary climates. Even simple tools designed for resource extraction broke down faster than expected. Su Jin noticed the cracks forming within the council. During one particularly heated debate, she confronted Jin Ho privately. "You can't keep ignoring this," she said firmly, stepping into his office without knocking. "We're falling apart without humanity. Their tech, their knowledge, it's all slipping away." Jin Ho leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. "And what do you suggest we do?" he asked coolly. "Beg them to come back? Chase after them blindly? We don't even know where they went." "We need to find out," Su Jin insisted. "If we don't address this now, things will only get worse. You've seen how quickly tensions are rising. Without someone to mediate, we'll spiral into chaos." Jin Ho waved her off dismissively. "Chaos is overstated. Other species will adapt. We'll rebuild what we've lost." But Su Jin wasn't convinced. She knew better than to argue further, so she left his office, her mind racing. As she walked through the halls of the council building, she passed clusters of aides whispering, anxiously. Some discussed the latest skirmish near a disputed mining colony. Others debated whether certain planets should realign allegiances in light of humanity's departure. Everywhere she looked, fear and uncertainty lingered. Later that week, news arrived that sent shockwaves through the council. A rogue faction had seized control of a former human colony world. Using stolen technology, they fortified their position and declared independence. The implications were dire. Not only did this demonstrate how vulnerable abandoned human infrastructure was, but it also highlighted the dangers of unchecked aggression. Su Jin couldn't shake the feeling that they were running out of time. If the council didn't act soon, the entire galaxy might descend into chaos. Determined to take matters into her own hands, she reached out to Min-Su, a historian known for his expertise in interspecies relations. They met discreetly in a quiet corner of the library, surrounded by dusty archives and holographic displays. "I need your help," Su Jin said bluntly, sitting across from him at a small table. "I think there's something we're missing about humanity's role here, something bigger than anyone realizes." Min-Su adjusted his glasses, intrigued. "What do you mean?" "I mean, we've always assumed humanity was just another player in this galactic game. But maybe they were more important than we gave them credit for. Maybe their influence ran deeper than we understood." Min-Su nodded thoughtfully. "It's possible. Let me dig into some records. There might be clues buried in historical data." Over the next few days, Min-Su pored over ancient archives detailing humanity's early interactions with alien civilizations. What he discovered shocked him. Humans hadn't merely participated in galactic affairs, they had acted as mediators during countless crises. Their ability to adapt, innovate, and empathize made them indispensable allies. Time and again, they stepped in when others faltered, preventing conflicts from escalating into full-blown wars. Excited yet apprehensive, Min-Su shared his findings with Su-Jin. "This changes everything," he said, spreading holographic projections across the table. Humans weren't just contributors. They were stabilizers. Their presence kept rivalries in check. Without them, we're seeing exactly what happens when that balance is disrupted. Su-Jin stared at the images, her heart sinking. She realized now why humanity's departure felt so catastrophic. It wasn't just about losing their technology or expertise, it was about losing the glue that held the galaxy together. Determined to act, Su-Jin decided to assemble a small team to investigate further. With Min-Su's help, she recruited trusted individuals willing to operate outside official channels. Their goal was simple: find any trace of humanity and uncover the truth behind their sudden exit. Jin-Ho, however, grew suspicious. Rumors spread quickly within the council, and it wasn't long before he learned of Su-Jin's secret mission. Furious, he confronted her in the council chambers, his voice low but sharp. "What do you think you're doing?" he demanded. "This isn't authorized. You're risking everything." "I'm trying to save us," Su-Jin shot back, meeting his gaze steadily. "If you won't do anything, then I will." Jin-Ho clenched his fists, torn between outrage and doubt. For the first time, he wondered if he'd underestimated humanity and the consequences of their absence. But pride kept him silent. Instead, he stormed out of the chamber, leaving Su-Jin to press forward alone. As she prepared for the journey ahead, Su-Jin felt a mix of hope and dread. Hope that they might still find answers. Dread that it might already be too late. The galaxy teetered on the brink of collapse, and the weight of responsibility rested heavily on her shoulders. Yet she refused to give up. Humanity may have left, silently, but their legacy remained. A reminder that cooperation, not division, was the key to survival. The search for answers began quietly, almost invisibly. Su-Jin and her small team worked under the radar, avoiding attention from council members who might try to stop them. They knew time was running out. The galaxy's fragile peace was unraveling, faster than they had anticipated. Every day brought new reports of skirmishes, blockades, and rising tensions between alien factions. The absence of humanity was like a missing puzzle piece. Without it, the picture fell apart. Min-Su played a crucial role in guiding their efforts. Using the historical data he uncovered, he identified several locations that once served as key points of interaction between humans and other species. These were places where humanity's influence had been strongest: abandoned research stations, forgotten trade hubs, and derelict colonies. If there were clues to be found, Min-Su believed these sites would hold them. Their first destination was an old human outpost orbiting a dying star. It was remote, far from major trade routes, and largely ignored by the rest of the galaxy. The outpost itself was little more than a crumbling shell now, its systems long since shut down. But something about its location made it worth investigating. According to Min-Su's records, this place had been used as a testing ground for experimental technologies decades ago. Perhaps remnants of those experiments could shed light on humanity's mindset before their departure. The journey there was tense but uneventful. Su-Jin spent most of her time reviewing what little information they had while keeping an eye on the ship's sensors. Her teammates, a mix of engineers, historians, and diplomats, worked together seamlessly, each contributing their skills to the mission. Despite the gravity of their task, there was a sense of purpose among them. For the first time in weeks, Su-Jin felt like they were doing something meaningful. When they arrived at the outpost, the sight was sobering. The structure floated silently against the backdrop of a dimming sun, its metallic surface pockmarked with age and neglect. Docking proved tricky. Much of the station's infrastructure was damaged or non-functional, but eventually they managed to secure their vessel and step inside. The airlock hissed open, revealing a dark, eerily quiet interior. Dust coated every surface, and the faint hum of failing power systems echoed through the corridors. Flashlights cut through the gloom as the team moved cautiously forward, scanning for anything useful. At first, it seemed hopeless. The place was stripped bare, devoid of any obvious clues. Then, deep within the station's archives, they stumbled upon something remarkable. Fragments of data logs left behind by Hyun-seok, a human scientist stationed at the facility prior to the Exodus. The logs were incomplete, corrupted by time and decay, but enough remained to paint a partial picture. Hyun-seok wrote candidly about his work, his frustrations, and, most importantly, his thoughts on humanity's future. Soo-jin sat cross-legged, on the cold floor, scrolling through the recovered files on a portable reader. Each entry revealed glimpses of a man grappling with profound questions. He spoke of humanity's struggles to fit into galactic society, of the constant push and pull between ambition and restraint. In one particularly poignant passage, he described feeling torn between two paths, staying to help maintain peace or leaving to pursue self-sufficiency elsewhere. Humans have always been wanderers, Hyun-seok wrote in his final log. Our curiosity drives us to explore, to seek new horizons. But here, among the stars, we've become entangled in conflicts not our own. Maybe it's time to step back, to find a place where we can grow without causing harm. His words struck a chord with Soo-jin. She understood now why humanity chose to leave, not out of malice or indifference, but out of a desire to avoid further destabilization. Their presence, while beneficial in many ways, also carried risks. By removing themselves from the equation, they hoped to give the galaxy a chance to heal, but the logs contained more than just reflections. Toward the end, Hyun-seok hinted at a hidden message embedded in the stars themselves. He described patterns visible only through specific frequencies, suggesting they held instructions or coordinates. Whether this was metaphorical or literal, Soo-jin couldn't tell. Either way, it was a lead worth pursuing. "This changes everything," Min-soo said softly, peering over her shoulder at the screen. "If we can decipher this, maybe we can find them." Soo-jin nodded, determination hardening her features. "We'll need to build a device capable of detecting whatever signal he's talking about. It won't be easy, but it's our best shot." Back aboard their ship, the team got to work. Engineers pored over schematics, piecing together equipment, scavenged from the outpost. Others analyzed Hyun-seok's notes, searching for additional hints about the signal's nature. Days turned into nights as they labored tirelessly, driven by the hope of finding humanity and perhaps saving the galaxy in the process. Meanwhile, word of their expedition leaked back to the council. Jin-ho wasted no time confronting Soo-jin, accusing her of treason and demanding she abandon the mission. His anger was palpable, but beneath it lay a flicker of doubt. Deep down, he wondered if she might be right, if humanity's return could restore order to a fractured universe. "You're risking everything," Jin-ho snapped during one heated exchange. "What happens if you fail? What happens if you make things worse?" "I'm already risking everything," Soo-jin shot back. "Because doing nothing is worse. You can sit here and pretend everything's fine, but the truth is, we're falling. Apart. Without humanity, we're lost." Her words hit home, though Jin-ho refused to admit it. Instead, he stormed off, leaving her to continue undeterred. Finally, after days of effort, the team completed their device. It was crude, cobbled together from spare parts, but functional. With bated breath, they activated it and aimed it toward the stars. At first, nothing happened. Then slowly, a faint pattern emerged, a sequence of pulses corresponding to specific frequencies. It was faint, almost imperceptible, but unmistakably artificial. "We did it," Min-soo whispered, awe evident in his voice. "This has to be it." Using the signal, they pinpointed its origin, a distant sector of space untouched by any known civilization. The coordinates led to a region shrouded in mystery, rarely explored due to its remoteness. Soo-jin hesitated, only briefly before giving the order to set course. Whatever awaited them, they had no choice but to face it head-on. As their ship entered hyperspace, Soo-jin allowed herself a moment of reflection. Humanity's silence weighed heavily on her mind. Had they truly intended to sever ties forever? Or had they hoped someone would come looking for them? Either way, she knew their decision hadn't been made lightly. Whatever answers lay ahead, they would shape the fate of the galaxy and humanity's place within it for generations to come. The journey to the mysterious coordinates stretched longer than anyone had anticipated. The sector of space they were heading toward was far from any known civilization, untouched by explorers or traders. It was a vast, empty expanse, devoid of stars and planets, just endless blackness punctuated by faint cosmic dust clouds. For days, the ship drifted silently through hyperspace, its engines humming softly as the crew prepared for whatever lay ahead. Su-Jin spent much of her time reviewing Hyun-Sok's logs again, searching for anything she might have missed. The scientist's words echoed in her mind. Humanity's departure wasn't an act of abandonment, but rather a deliberate choice to step back and focus on their own growth. She couldn't help but wonder what kind of place they had chosen for themselves. Was it peaceful, thriving, or was it something else entirely? Her teammates were equally restless. Engineers double-checked every system on the ship, ensuring everything was functioning perfectly. Diplomats rehearsed potential conversations with humanity, trying to anticipate how best to approach them. Min-Soo, ever the historian, pored over old maps and charts, looking for any mention of this region. But no matter how hard he searched, there was nothing, just blank spaces where knowledge should have been. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the ship emerged from hyperspace. Before them loomed a massive structure unlike anything they had ever seen. It was shaped like a crystalline sphere, shimmering faintly against the backdrop of the void. Its surface reflected light in strange patterns, creating an almost hypnotic effect. The team stared in awe, unsure whether to feel amazed or terrified. "Is that artificial?" one of the engineers asked hesitantly, breaking the silence. "It has to be," Min-Soo replied, his voice tinged with wonder. "Nothing natural could look like that." Su-Jin nodded slowly. "Let's get closer." As they approached, sensors detected no signs of hostility. There were no weapons systems, no defensive barriers, just the sphere floating serenely in the darkness. When they docked at a small entrance port, the airlock opened automatically, inviting them inside. The interior was even more breathtaking than the exterior. Walls made of translucent material glowed softly, casting warm light throughout the corridors. Holographic projections flickered to life as they stepped further in, displaying scenes of humanity thriving on distant worlds. There were images of lush green landscapes dotted with futuristic cities, bustling markets filled with laughter and music, and schools where children learned about science and art. In each scene, humans appeared happy, healthy, and united. These weren't just recordings, they were glimpses into humanity's new life, a testament to what they had achieved since leaving the Council. Su-Jin felt a lump rise in her throat. Humanity hadn't abandoned the galaxy because they didn't care. They left because they believed they could do better, not just for themselves, but for everyone else too. Their decision wasn't selfish, it was selfless. Min-Soo touched her arm gently. "Look," he said, pointing to another projection. This one showed text written in multiple languages, including Galactic Standard. It read, "To those who find this message, we did not leave out of anger or despair. We left because we wanted to grow without causing harm. Our hope is that you will learn from our absence and build a future where cooperation triumphs over conflict." Suti. Message went on to explain that humanity had chosen isolation to focus on internal progress. They believed their presence often disrupted galactic peace, unintentionally fueling rivalries and tensions. By stepping away, they hoped other species would come together and find solutions on their own. Su-Jin turned to her team, her eyes shining with determination. "This changes nothing," she said firmly. "They may have left, but they've given us a roadmap. We need to show them we can follow it." Before departing, Su-Jin activated a fail-safe mechanism embedded in the sphere's systems. It was designed to alert humanity of visitors, though whether the message would reach them remained uncertain. As they returned to their ship, she couldn't shake the feeling that humanity was watching, waiting to see what the Council would do next. Back aboard their vessel, the mood was somber yet hopeful. Everyone understood the weight of what they had discovered. Humanity wasn't gone forever. They had simply taken a step back, trusting others to take responsibility for the galaxy's future. Now, it was up to the Council to prove that trust wasn't misplaced. The journey home was quieter than the trip out. Each member of the team retreated into their thoughts, processing what they had seen and learned. Su-Jin stood on the bridge, staring out at the stars as the ship sped through. Hyperspace. Her mind raced with possibilities. How would the Council react to this news? Would Jin-Ho still cling to his stubborn refusal to acknowledge humanity's importance? And most importantly, could they convince humanity to return, even if only temporarily, to help restore balance? When they finally reached the Council's capital planet, Su-Jin wasted no time sharing their findings. Jin-Ho listened skeptically, arms crossed and jaw tight. Others, however, were visibly moved by the story. Yoonji, in particular, seemed inspired. "This is proof we can change," she said passionately. "Humanity trusted us to fix our own problems. Let's honor that trust." Su-Jin agreed. "We need to send a message, not as rulers or authorities, but as equals. We need to ask for their help respectfully, acknowledging their sacrifices and contributions." Though reluctant, even Jin-Ho began to soften. Perhaps humanity's departure wasn't the disaster he had feared. Perhaps it was an opportunity, a chance for the galaxy to grow stronger, wiser, and more united. For now, all they could do was wait and hope their plea would be heard. Humanity had left silently, but their legacy endured, a reminder that cooperation, not division, was the key to survival among the stars. The council chamber buzzed with tension as Su-Jin stood before the assembly, recounting her team's discovery. She spoke calmly, but with conviction, laying out every detail of their journey to the crystalline sphere and the message humanity had left behind. The room was silent except for the occasional shuffle of papers or the faint hum of holographic displays flickering to life as she presented images of the sphere and its glowing interior. Jin-Ho sat stiffly in his chair, his face unreadable. He had always prided himself on being rational, unemotional, but now doubt gnawed at him. Humanity's departure wasn't an act of betrayal or weakness. It was deliberate, thoughtful, even noble. And yet he couldn't bring himself to admit that publicly. Not yet. Instead, he listened quietly, arms crossed tightly over his chest, as Su-Jin explained the implications of their findings. "We've been given a chance," Su-Jin said, her voice steady. "Humanity didn't leave because they hated us or wanted to abandon us. They left because they believed we could grow without them. But now, we need to prove them right. We need to show them, and ourselves, that we're capable of unity." Her words resonated with many council members. Yoonji nodded vigorously from her seat, while others exchanged hopeful glances. Even some of Jin-Ho's usual allies seemed swayed by Su-Jin's argument. Still, resistance lingered. Several traditionalist counselors grumbled about relying too heavily on humanity, insisting that the galaxy should stand on its own 2 feet. But Su-Jin wasn't finished. "We can't ignore reality," she continued. "Our systems are failing. Conflicts are escalating. Without humanity's stabilizing influence, we're spiraling toward chaos. Yes, we must learn to solve our own problems, but asking for help isn't weakness. It's wisdom." Her speech ended with a proposal. The Council would broadcast a plea directly to humanity, asking them to return, not as subordinates or saviors, but as equals. The message would emphasize respect, gratitude, and a shared commitment to rebuilding galactic peace. It was bold, risky even, but Su-Jin believed it was their best chance. The debate that followed was heated. Some counselors argued passionately in favor of Su-Jin's plan, while others dismissed it as naive or futile. Jin-Ho remained silent for most of the discussion, his expression inscrutable. When he finally spoke, his tone was measured but laced with reluctance. "I still don't believe humanity is irreplaceable," he began, drawing murmurs of disapproval from the crowd. "But," he paused, choosing his words carefully, "if this message gives us even a small chance at stability, then perhaps it's worth trying." His reluctant support tipped the scales. After hours of deliberation, the council voted to proceed with Sujin's proposal. A team of diplomats and engineers worked tirelessly to craft the message, ensuring it conveyed humility and sincerity. They used frequencies identified during their expedition to the crystalline sphere, hoping humanity would hear and respond. Weeks passed without any sign of acknowledgement. Doubt crept back into the council chambers, manifesting in hushed whispers and uneasy glances. Had humanity received the message? Were they ignoring it? Or worse, had they moved on entirely, leaving no way to reach them? Sujin refused to give up hope. She spent long hours poring over data, rechecking calculations, and consulting with Min Su about alternative ways to contact humanity. Her determination inspired others to keep pushing forward, even as frustration mounted. Then, one day, something extraordinary happened. Ships appeared suddenly near the Council's capital planet, ships unlike anything anyone had seen before. Sleek and silver, they shimmered faintly in the sunlight, exuding an aura of quiet power. At first, panic rippled through the Council. Was this an attack? Retaliation for their unauthorized visit to the crystalline sphere? But instead of aggression, humanity offered aid. Representatives, led by Yuna, a calm yet authoritative figure, addressed the Council via hologram. Her presence commanded attention, not through force but through sheer composure. She listened patiently as council members expressed their fears, frustrations, and hopes for the future. "Your message reached us," Yuna said simply, her voice warm but firm. "And we understand your struggles. Humanity chose isolation not out of disdain, but out of necessity. Our presence often disrupted the balance you sought to maintain. But seeing the state of the galaxy now, we recognize that complete separation may not be sustainable." She went on to explain that humanity was willing to assist temporarily, offering guidance and resources to help stabilize the situation. However, their involvement would come with conditions. They wouldn't take sides in disputes or impose solutions. Instead, they would encourage the Council to find answers within itself, fostering cooperation rather than dependency. Jinho bristled at the terms but held his tongue. Sujin, however, felt a surge of relief. This was more than she had dared to hope for. Humanity's cautious approach made sense. They didn't want to repeat past mistakes. By stepping in only briefly, they gave the Council a chance to rebuild trust and resilience. Over the following weeks, humanity's representatives worked closely with the Council, sharing knowledge and strategies for peaceful negotiation. They provided blueprints for sustainable technologies and advised on resolving conflicts without violence. Their presence was subtle but impactful, like a guiding hand steadying a wobbly table. As humanity prepared to depart once again, they left behind not just tools and ideas, but also a renewed sense of purpose. The Council began implementing reforms, aimed at fostering mutual understanding among species. Trade routes reopened, tensions eased, and old rivalries started fading. Jinho, though still skeptical, admitted privately to Sujin that he had misjudged humanity. "Maybe they aren't so bad after all," he muttered grudgingly. Sujin smiled faintly, knowing how difficult those words must have been for him to say. When the last human ship disappeared into the stars, silence settled over the council chambers. Humanity had returned silently, just as they had left. Yet, their legacy endured. A reminder that sometimes stepping back allows others to step forward. And in that delicate balance lay the key to lasting harmony among the stars.